There are thoughts that linger longer than time, thoughts so heavy that even the passing of years cannot lessen their weight. And this thought, this regret, clings to me like a shadow cast by fire. It was never my intention to bring devastation into the world. My pursuit was always knowledge, beauty, the unraveling of nature's secrets. I lived in awe of the cosmos, not in fear of it. But one equation, one small piece of insight, set into motion something I could never have foreseen in its full consequence. Now every time I see the image of a mushroom cloud, it feels as if a fragment of my own soul was caught in the explosion. That is the cost of thought divorced from wisdom. That is the price of discovery. Et imax pontret. That simple expression changed the world. When I first revived it, I saw elegance. I saw the universe condensed into a few symbols, a gateway to understanding the harmony of nature, mass and energy, two forms of the same essence, bound together in a cosmic dance. But I never imagined that this elegance would one day be twisted into destruction. The equation did not come with a warning label. It did not scream of the cities it would one day erase or the generations it would terrify. Yet there it was, the seed of unimaginable energy placed into human hands, hands that do not always shake with responsibility. In the 1930s, the world was unraveling. I had escaped the rising tides of fascism in Europe, but I watched with horror as the darkness spread across borders, across minds. Hitler had seized control of Germany, and whispers began to circulate. German scientists were working on splitting the atom. The possibility that such a regime could possess the power to level entire cities was chilling beyond words. We feared not what we knew, but what they might discover before us. It was not ambition that drove us, it was terror. Leo Szilard and Edward Teller approached me. They spoke with urgency, with a kind of desperation that unnerved me. They believed the United States needed to act before Germany did. They had drafted a letter to President Roosevelt explaining the danger and urging the pursuit of atomic research. They asked me to sign it. My name, they believed, would give the letter the weight it needed. I hesitated. I am not a man drawn easily into politics or weapons, but the fear that Hitler might gain this power first overcame me. I signed. That signature was not merely ink on paper. It was the catalyst for the Manhattan Project. It was the moment the United States committed itself to unlocking the most terrible power known to man. I was not involved in the project's scientific work. In fact, I was not even invited to participate. The military viewed me as a risk, too vocal in my beliefs, too international in my connections. Still, my letter had opened the door. That door would never be closed again. The project advanced rapidly. In secret laboratories, scientists worked to transform theory into mechanism. Uranium, plutonium, fission, chain reactions, all words that had once belonged to physics journals now became part of military briefings. What had once been speculation was becoming reality, a reality of steel, fire, and fallout. The pursuit of the bomb became a race, not just against Germany, but against time itself. And yet, when Germany fell, before the bomb was ready, the race continued. That, to me, was the first betrayal of the moral argument we had once held. On August 6, 1945, a single bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. In a fraction of a second, tens of thousands of people were vaporized. The city burned, shadows burned onto walls, children into ash. I remember sitting in silence when I heard the news. The weight of it struck deeper than any scientific truth I had ever uncovered. It was not theory. It was death, sudden and overwhelming. And I could not escape the knowledge that somewhere, behind the machinery, behind the policies, behind the flash, was a piece of my work. Just 3 days later, a second bomb fell on Nagasaki. I could hardly comprehend that such horror had been repeated. Was one city not enough to prove the point? Did we need a second inferno to validate the first? It was then that I knew The bomb had not been a last resort. It had become a demonstration of power, a statement, and I felt a shame so profound it stole the air from my lungs. Science had given birth to the power of annihilation, and mankind had chosen to use it, not with reverence but with pride. They say I should not feel guilty, that others built the bomb, that others dropped it. But I know better. I understand the chain of events. I was the first domino, and no matter how many hands pushed the rest, I began the fall. I did not build the weapon, but I gave the world the language it needed to imagine it. My theories made it possible. And while I did not aim the plane, my silence, my failure to foresee what men would do with my discoveries, was a kind of complicity. After the war, the bombs did not disappear. Instead, they multiplied. The United States, then the Soviet Union, then other nations, all racing to outdo one another in destructive capacity. What had been unthinkable in 1939 became routine in the 1950s. The idea that entire civilizations could be erased in minutes was accepted with a shrug. We called it deterrence. We built our safety on the threat of mutual destruction. It was madness, wrapped in the language of strategy, and I watched it unfold with dread. I devoted my life to understanding the laws of the universe, not to bending them to the service of war. Yet it seems that every great leap in science becomes a weapon before it becomes a cure. Radioactivity was once hailed as a miracle. Then came bombs. Computers were born from wartime code breaking. Then came surveillance and cyber warfare. Artificial intelligence may be next. Will it uplift humanity or enslave it? We do not suffer from ignorance. We suffer from a failure to ask, should we, even when we can? I never sought fame, but it came. My face appeared in magazines, on stamps in classrooms. People celebrated my intellect, and yet too often for the wrong reasons. They remember the equation, not the caution. They repeat my name alongside the bomb, forgetting that I spoke endlessly against its use, that I begged leaders to turn away from war, that I spent the final decades of my life pleading for peace. It is a strange thing to be praised for a brilliance that brought pain. At night, I often spoke to myself, not aloud, but in thought. I asked, what else could I have done? Could I have refused Salad? Could I have issued public warnings? Would anyone have listened? Perhaps not. Perhaps the tide of history was too strong. But the questions haunt me regardless. Conscience does not care for convenience. It demands honesty. And my honest answer is this. I feared the Nazis more than I trusted humanity. And that fear guided my pen. Science is not inherently moral or immoral. It is a tool, a method of inquiry. But it is practiced by humans, and we bring our flaws into the lab. Curiosity alone is not enough. Discovery is not the end point. Every breakthrough carries an ethical burden. Who will use it? How will it be applied? For what ends? I wish more scientists asked these questions. I wish I had asked them sooner. In the years after the war, I did what I could. I joined committees for peace. I supported the United Nations. I spoke against nationalism, against arms races, against the very bomb I had helped unleash. But the world had changed. My voice, once a catalyst, had become an echo. The machine had already been built, and it would run with or without me. That is the great tragedy of momentum. It rarely turns back once set in motion. To those who inherit this world, I say this: do not celebrate science without conscience. Do not pursue power without wisdom. What you create today will shape the lives of billions tomorrow. The tools you build may be your salvation or your ruin, and you may not know which until it's too late. Question everything, especially the ease with which we explain violence as necessity. We believed we could control it. The bomb, the consequences, the politics. But control is an illusion. Once a technology is born, it slips from the hands of its creators. It finds its own path. It enters the hands of those who did not build it, who may not understand it, who may not fear it. That is the danger, not the creation itself, but the belief that we alone will decide its fate. I have often said that science without religion is lame, and religion without science is blind. What I meant was this: our understanding of the universe must be paired with reverence, with humility, with awe. The power to split the atom is meaningless if it is not guided by a deep respect for life. We must cultivate both intellect and soul. Otherwise we become clever beasts, capable of miracles but destined for catastrophe. My regret is not simply that a bomb was made. My regret is that it was made too easily, too eagerly, too proudly, that the same human spirit that climbs mountains and maps galaxies was used to build a weapon for genocide. I regret that I played a part, however small, in making that possible. I regret that my work was not protected from misuse. And most of all, I regret that even today we have not fully learned the lesson. So if my voice reaches you in whatever time, in whatever language, let it say this: let science serve life, let knowledge be a beacon, not a blade. Let the next great discovery be one that heals, not harms. I gave the world an equation, but you must decide what to do with its meaning. Do not let it end in ashes, let it end in light. So if my voice reaches you in whatever time, in whatever language, let it say this: let science serve life, let knowledge be a beacon, not a blade. Let the next great discovery be one that heals, not harms. I gave the world an equation, but you must decide what to do with its meaning. Do not let it end in ashes, let it end in light.